It really is just a global choice of like Western liberal democracies or China. Who leads the world order?
We can make so much money in China, Chris.
Thank you, Ray Dalio.
And look, I mean, since you guys mentioned Dalio the other day, I don't know if you saw, but the Global Times was touting Ray Dalio as his company was the first to reach the 10 billion RMB assets under management in China mark as the largest asset manager, the largest foreign asset manager in China. That's not a coincidence. Okay, I mean that is the basic deal that that companies like Bridgewater make. Is if you want to be in the Chinese market, this is what you do.
Well, invest in basically in RMB in China.
One of the things is China is playing their leverage very well. If you're taking it from the Chinese perspective, one of the best examples is Coca-Cola. They were lobbying heavily against the Uyghur bill, the forced labor bill, and they were basically asked, well, why are you lobbying against the forced labor bill? It only applies if you're exporting product from Xinjiang to the United States. Now,
right, but their secret ingredient is Uyghur tears.
Oh God.
Oh, so that was the old Coke, okay?
Okay, yeah.
This is new Coke.
So they were asked, well, why are you lobbying against this? You don't have any stake in this. You never export Coke from Xinjiang to Los Angeles. I mean, the cost it makes no sense economically. What do you care? What was basically came out is Beijing was saying, you guys lobby against this or we're going to make your life hell. Okay. Mm-hmm. So even though this had no impact on Coke, okay, because again, the only way you get in trouble from this bill is if you are exporting something from Xinjiang to the United States. So Coke, this had no impact on them, but they said we were basically told Beijing will make our life hell if we don't lobby against this bill. It's not enough to just take no position. It's not enough to just take no position. We have to actively lobby effectively on behalf of Beijing.
Wow.
Xinjiang makes sugar, right? Like, do they use any Xinjiang sugar in there? But like, they
Coca-Cola doesn't use sugar.
Well, I mean, they
only
don't use.
In the US.
That is true. They don't use sugar in the U.S. So then, if they could they get in trouble for using Xinjiang sugar in China? Maybe not.
No. It's only if it's so the United States. So the forced labor bill does not apply if you make something in Xinjiang and ship it to Zhejiang. U.S. law has no application. Okay, it is only if there's an export that goes from Xinjiang to the United States. Okay, and typically, theoretically, it can be applied to inputted like a primary input. Okay. Mm-hmm. In practice, that's very hard to do. Okay, that's very hard to do. Okay, but theoretically, it could apply, but it doesn't really. Okay, so unless they're directly importing Coke from Xinjiang to the United States, this has no impact on Coke, but they were lobbying for this effectively at the behest of Beijing.
Because Beijing is making Western companies choose, essentially.
Well, I mean, I think we've seen this over the summer too, them starting to make Chinese companies choose.
Yes.
Like you talked earlier about delisting, Chris, but actually like Didi just delisted from the New York Stock Exchange, not because of pressure from the US, but from pressure from China. Do you think that the Chinese Communist Party, they're going to essentially try to do what you're saying, like bifurcate the system?
I think they are trying to bifurcate the system. Absolutely. At the same time, I got to say, especially with the Didi case, but even their broader policy here, I'm a little puzzled by, and here's basically why. So the basic reason that they're giving for the Didi one is that their data security concerns about Didi listing in the United States. First of all, China has maintained a very strict policy that basically all corporate records in China for firms that list outside of China are national security secrets. And this goes for accounting records. This goes, for, basically anything having to do with any company, whether or not they produce missiles or just, whatever it is. So that data really hasn't been turned over to U.S. regulators for more than a decade. Okay, so my first issue is I don't know what data Didi would even be providing to U.S. regulators. Okay, I don't, and I can't get anybody to tell me like, well, actually, there's this little loophole or whatever that Chinese companies give to U.S. regulators. So I don't know what data they would be giving to U.S. regulators. So that specific example doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. That specific explanation, I should say, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Let's say very clearly, however, that Chinese data management practices are absolutely terrible. Okay, I mean, make no mistake about it. Not just they're scooping up data on foreigners around the world, but that they do actively just have very incompetent people inside these companies managing user data. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The other reason that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense is that New York Stock Exchange and being able to raise money in the United States and in other foreign jurisdictions is actually very important to get US dollars for Chinese companies that want to expand abroad. Okay, so that's another thing. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense as to why they're trying to cut off that avenue of financing for Chinese companies. But I do think very fundamentally what you said initially about bifurcating the system, yes, I think absolutely they have made the decision that barring a U.S. collapse where we say, okay, you don't have to provide any data, any financial records if we ask, I do think they have basically decided, yes, we're going to bifurcate our financial system from the United States.
Well, it seems like China is aware of the economic leverage of the United States, particularly, as you mentioned, China's dependence on U.S. dollars, which is why I think you start to see more and more Chinese companies dual listing on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, China trying to make its own digital currency. How do you see China trying to sort of insulate itself from any kind of economic leverage the U.S. has?
So I think, I think you've seen this in a lot of what we've seen out of China in the past couple of years has really been about that entire issue. Whether it's the biggest one, a big one, I should say, would be self-sufficiency in chips. That has been a major issue. I think you've seen this in, this is why they want to send companies that might list in New York. They're not sending them back to Shanghai. They're sending them back to Hong Kong, where they could still access basically what amounts to hard currency. Because with most examples, the RMB is not really hard currency. Okay, you can't really use it outside of China. You've seen a couple of small examples where they've signed deals with Zimbabwe, and hey, if China wants to sign, an RMB agreement with Zimbabwe, knock yourself out is my opinion. Have fun with that. But they are absolutely sending them to Hong Kong because they can still get U.S. dollars. So I think the overall focus, a major focus of Chinese policy is to basically insulate themselves, whether it's technologically. You've even seen this in, basically shutting down data flows. One that, happened recently is they passed this data privacy law, and basically even run-of-the-mill data providers in China now aren't providing data to foreigners. And again, this isn't like, hey, where's China store the nuclear launch codes? This is, what is basic business data? They just aren't providing to foreigners now. And so I think you are seeing that China's taking the decoupling bull by the horns. In America, we sit and talk about it. China's actually doing it.
So do you think this represents like a danger for the U.S. then?
I think it's a danger, but I think more in the sense of China's doing this for a reason. They're not doing it for no reason whatsoever. The first place your mind would go would be, well, they're preparing for war. Okay, with Taiwan, and what would happen if we faced serious sanctions after we invaded Taiwan or something like that. Okay, that's the first place your mind drifts. I don't necessarily think that is maybe the driving factor, but I do think absolutely they are preparing for, let's say, a continued trimming of any engagement with the international community. I mean, they are becoming, let's say, kind of like almost a North Korea light at this point. I think is a better way to put it. And so I think they are preparing not just for, the next year with, COVID, but I do think they are preparing for a sustained period of Chinese history where they continue to minimize any interaction with the outside world.